Now, politically, 2016 is going to be a wild ride, but it is already rather rocky in the stock markets, both domestically and internationally. So what is going on? Is it back to the future for Wall Street? Back to recession? Joining me now from Westport, Connecticut, CEO and Chief Global Strategist for Euro-Pacific Capital, Peter Schiff. Peter, it seems to me rather disingenuous to blame what's going on in the U.S. markets right now, the big drop, the terrible start to 2016, on China's problems in their markets and Kim Jong-un testing a hydrogen bomb. We've got plenty of problems here at home of our own.
Well, absolutely. In fact, if anything, the problems in the overseas markets are emanating from the United States. I mean, we're the source of the global instability. It's the Fed. Now, I said on your program many times that if the Fed made the mistake of pricking its own bubble and actually raised interest rates in 2015, which is what they did in the waning weeks of December, that the stock market was going to drop like a stone. And that's exactly what's happening because the air is coming out of this bubble, and there's a lot of air in there. This is the biggest bubble the Fed has ever inflated. And at the same time, the Great Recession, which the Fed interrupted with its monetary stimulus, is going to resume in earnest because now all of the problems that the market would have corrected but for the Fed are going to come back in even greater, with greater pain now because they've all been made worse thanks to the last 7 years of Fed policy.
So why did the Fed raise rates? Because they had to save face? They were painted into a corner or what?
I think that's it. Look, they were pretending they were going to raise rates all year. They were talking about how the economy was strong enough for a rate hike, and I think they felt that if they didn't deliver by December, that people would know that they were wrong, or that they didn't understand the economy, or they would doubt the legitimacy of the recovery. So I think the Fed felt that they had no choice, and maybe they were lulled into a false sense of confidence when they hinted at rate hikes finally in December, and the stock market didn't roll over like it did in August, which is why, of course, they couldn't raise in September. So if they believed that the markets were blessing the rate hike, I said from the beginning that was the wrong conclusion to make because I thought it would be a head fake. And here we are. We had the worst opening week in the history of the stock market. And I think there's a lot more downside to come, both for the market and the economy. And it's amazing that so many people are trying to pretend that there's no problem, or they're trying to say, it's contained to China, or the problems in the economy are contained to manufacturing, it's everything else is okay. This is just what they said when the mortgage bubble burst. They said it was contained to subprime, or when the NASDAQ bubble burst, they said, oh, it's contained to tech. It's never contained, but they never run out of excuses.
And if you look at the fundamentals, which you do every day, the Fed reads the same fundamentals. You look at the jobs report that came out, 290,000 jobs. Everybody was very happy about that. Didn't help the market all that much. But when you start peeling back the onion on those jobs, 30,000 jobs in the service sector. Those are waiters and bartenders. 50,000 jobs in the healthcare assistant. Those are cleaning out bedpans. Only 8,000 jobs in manufacturing. Peter, that's trouble for manufacturing, is it not?
No, I don't even believe that we created 8. I think we lost manufacturing jobs. Look, I think a lot of these jobs are there because of seasonal adjustments, which probably didn't even work, because in case they didn't notice, it was a pretty warm December, but they probably assumed it was cold, and they probably made up some gains that didn't exist. And of course, a lot of the jobs come from the birth-death assumption, where the government just assumes that new businesses were started and they hired people. Reality is businesses aren't starting up, they're closing down, and they're laying people off. So I don't necessarily believe these numbers. And in fact, if you look at all the other numbers that we got last week, including 2 reports that came out on the same Friday as the job report, all these numbers are awful. So to me, if you get a preponderance of data points that say we're going to a recession or we're already there, and then we get this lone outlier, the job report, why would the job report be right and everything else be wrong? It's more likely that everything else is right and there's something wrong with the jobs numbers, especially when you consider the fact that jobs are a lagging indicator. They don't tell you where the economy is going, they tell you where it's been. all the leading indicators that are forward-looking are flashing recession. And once this recession hits and all the employers realize that they were wrong in anticipating a non-existent recovery, that they bought into the Fed's propaganda, they're going to be laying off a lot of workers they never should have hired in the first place. And then the unemployment rate is going to skyrocket. Then all the non-farm payrolls are going to disappear. But by then, we're knee-deep in a recession.
And then comes quantitative easing part 4, I assume, which would probably be the worst case scenario for our economy, and right in the middle of an election year, I may add.
Yes, or they may not wait that long. They may not wait until they see the whites of the eyes, of the recession, until we're in it. They may act to try to, prevent it from coming, because it is an election year. I mean, the last thing that Janet Yellen wants to do is hand the election to a Republican, or maybe even Donald Trump. And so she's going to do whatever she can to deliver it to Hillary Clinton. She remembers what happened when the Alan Greenspan bubble burst while Bush was still in office. That guaranteed that Obama would win, and McCain had no chance with that kind of baggage. Well, she doesn't want to saddle Hillary with the same kind of baggage. She wants Barack Obama to be able to leave claiming that he saved us, that he inherited a disaster, and now the economy has a clean bill of health, and he's just handing the baton to Hillary to continue the good work. If this thing blows up before he gets out of Dodge, and we're right back in as big a mess, if not bigger, than when he took the oath of office, 8 years earlier, then Hillary will have no chance.
Yep. Anybody who says that the Federal Reserve is apolitical is not paying attention. Peter,